Tonight, we're going to talk a bit about our weekly cards. So, if you refer back to the beginning of the year, right at the end of December, I did my sort of my 2025 prediction, and that is posted in the Side Chicks group. And I can get some links out for those things later on. But basically, in that reading, we pulled a card for each month. And for February, we pulled the Queen of Swords, which really sort of set the theme for February. So the idea of the yearly reading is we had a card for every month, and then as we've gone through each month, and this is just starting to get rolling, but um, starting really in February by the time I got started, we're going to take the card for the month. So in this case, the Queen of Swords, sort of use that as the basis for a reading for the month. And at the beginning of the month, we pulled 4 cards, one for sort of each week. So last week was the moon. I didn't really get to talk about that in the live video because we didn't really do one. I had some problems, but this week we're going to pick it up with this week's card. So pulling from the Queen of Swords for the month of February, we have this overall theme of a mastery of influence and communication, and from a place of being deeply in touch with one's emotions. So this is a compassionate use of influence. And we sort of set out the idea for February that this is really about gathering the people, sort of assembling your team, the people that you need to have with you, and who are going to help you moving forward, and finding people that you are really aligned with in your purpose, and in your personality to some extent, and just in your vibrational energies. So that was the basis for our February reading. And then in the February reading, which we put out, I just did by picture and text, we had, let's see, the Three of Cups. There we go. And so that's our card for this week. And so that sort of sets our theme to give us some guidance for this week and what we're sort of moving through. Like I said, last week was the moon, and that was very much about self-reflection, and how the people around us and the people we attract to us are reflections of who we are and what we project. So that was a very fitting one for the Valentine's Day, especially if you're into Hallmark holidays, as I like to say. But that leads to this week the Queen of Cups. And the Queen of Cups is very much sort of along the same, has a lot of the same themes, energetic themes, certainly rooted in the feminine energies, rooted in the emotional self, the element of water being a very reflective element. And here with the Three of Cups, we see these 3 women sort of holding these cups on high and having a celebration. It seems like they might even be dancing around, and below them on the ground, we see the bounty of harvest around them, this abundance and joy. And they're really in a elevated and joyful emotional state here, I think we can infer from this picture. And so the Three of Cups is pretty commonly considered, in terms of its meaning and its sort of most superficial and common meaning, is one of celebration. It's one of family and friends. Um, it is certainly a card to suggest joy and really, again, sort of being with your people and finding the people that you resonate the most with. And so this is a great reminder to celebrate ourselves and celebrate ourselves with other people. And I think that's something that we all could use more of in our lives. And as we do so, this is going to help us also get more in touch with the broader theme for February of, again, sort of attracting in the people into your life that really are there for your benefit, who are positive influences in your life, and who are going to help you along the way in your journey as you begin this year of manifesting all of your desires and wishes and fulfilling your divine purpose for the year and in life in general. So we have those sort of basic meanings to the card. It is a call again to celebration. I've certainly been leaning into that a lot this week and celebrating some very wonderful readings. I've really just started to have people start to purchase some tarot readings, which is one of the big aims around joining the Side Chicks group. It's a lot of what I've been working on at the beginning of the year. And so that has starting to come to fruition. And for me, people have been really wonderfully expressive in enjoying and getting a lot out of these readings. So it's been nice to know that I can really deliver and really provide something insightful for everyone. And so if anyone's watching who has received a reading, thank you so much again. I'm very grateful for that honor to serve. So I've been in this bit of celebration myself and sort of finding my tribe here in the group, and then also in my more personal life as well. Now, there are some deeper meanings to this card as well. We can kind of go a bit deeper with this, I think. There are some more sort of astrological attributions or correspondences to the Three of Cups that really enrich and go along with sort of the more obvious meaning of celebration. As I said before, we have a card that is um, in the element of water, in the energies of the divine feminine, the reflective self looking inwards, and then also how the external world reflects who we are as well. So that fit with the moon last week. And this card specifically, the Three of Cups, does correspond to the astrological symbol of Cancer, which is ruled by the planet of the moon. So again, we have that looking inward, that inner self shining out. And also, this card corresponds to the second decan of the sign of Cancer. So that is the second sort of 10-day block within the time that we are in Cancer. And that decan has its own planetary rulership of the planet Mercury. And so this becomes interesting because Mercury is a little bit less about intuition per se, like more like the moon is, but a little bit more about intellect and conscious thought, uh, communication, and through that influence. So again, this also hits on our monthly card, sort of being part of this meaning. And if we look at those two things together, the rulership of the moon and the rulership of Mercury and what those energies are for this card, and we look at how they are combined, we get some really interesting meaning that I think we can deduce here. So what this really looks like is a card that really hits on the archetype of a highly sensitive person, a highly emotionally aware person, empaths, something that I identify with quite a bit in myself. And that is all within the sign of Cancer. And then, given that we have these planetary energies within this, we also see that we can kind of get some guidance here, and we can kind of see that the adding sort of that mercurial interest, that mercurial energy into this, we see that we have to be very particular about how we communicate to others and also what we tune into in what we pick up from other people. And so this is definitely the highly sensitive person, I think, or a very empathic person, someone who is hyper aware and hyper vigilant of every nuance of how a person speaks, acts, their facial expressions, and just their general vibrational energy. And so for us empathic and highly sensitive people, we are just so hyper aware of that. And that provides us with quite a bit of guidance and what we can sort of do with that as we celebrate and as we gather our tribe. It is an important reminder that we should be selective about whom we celebrate with. that we should choose carefully people who we can be vulnerable around and with, and people who value that. Because being empathic, being highly sensitive, there is a vulnerability that um, we carry as those types of people. That sort of hypervigilance about everyone's emotional state very quickly can sort of run amok in our lives. And so, this is a great reminder for anyone who identifies in that sort of realm to really, again, choose carefully about who you're gathering around you, who you're celebrating with. And if you find that the people you are generally associating with are folks who you are not comfortable being vulnerable around, or the people who don't value and treasure that, then that's a really great thing to piece of learning, a lesson here to learn from the universe. And the thing that we can do with that, and that can be very disheartening on at first thought, but we what we can do with that is really start to look inward again, similar to our lesson from last week with the moon. We can start to look inward on ourselves and sort of be vulnerable with ourselves to an extent and be honest about who we are and really honor that. And so, if you don't have good people to celebrate with, I encourage you to celebrate yourself and celebrate with yourself, because as you do so, this will help to raise your own vibrational energy, and it will begin to attract the right sort of people into your life so that you do have people to celebrate with. And that's really going to help you going forward as you choose and decide to do whatever it is you're trying to achieve this year. So I think there's some really deep layers of meaning to this card. And to try to bring it around to more practical things, again, if you're someone who doesn't feel like you have some truly like good, trustworthy people in your life, then really take the time to love yourself and celebrate yourself, take yourself out on a date. I know that sounds kind of like a lonely thing to do, but just go out and do it and know that you deserve to have that, and really take stock of everything that you have done and accomplished. And also, when you think about things about yourself that you don't necessarily like as much, you have to love those things just as much, because they are actually parts of you that are good and helpful and part of your true self. You just have to learn to see them in a way and sort of own them as your own quirks, and they will become your strengths. Even any vulnerability that you have really can be a strength, and you can actually be a very strong person. I think you're a stronger person, honestly, by being able to show vulnerability to others um, in a way that you're not really letting them run over you, but being able to express it. And that was a lot of my own struggles in my life, which crept into my relationships and everything else, was being able to sort of admit my own vulnerabilities, and then be honest with people about them, and seek help and seek healing and nurturing from others and from the right people again who honored that and understood that and valued that in me. And so I spent a lot of my life just putting up this facade of having to be correct, or really having to look like I've got everything going on and I just am kind of this perfect person. And a lot of us fall into that as human beings, and it just didn't serve me. All it did was create a lot of anxiety and internal conflict in my life. And then all of the self destructive sort of coping behaviors that I engaged with as a way of dealing with that in a very unhealthy way. So that kind of shows us what happens when we don't lean into our vulnerabilities. Another practical sort of thing we can do with that, as far as celebrating and loving ourselves, is maybe taking this week and really sort of hashing out a few minutes to do a little something for ourselves, a little bit of self care. And I look at this card and I think of the Trinity here. We have the three women, the three figures, and the three cups. And so to me, this speaks to the idea of sort of mind, body, and spirit, or really your emotional self, more than just the divine self, from our sort of higher being. But really, I think a practical thing we can do with this week is carve out 5 minutes, so like 15 minutes of your day, and take 5 minutes to do something that just feels good for your body. Move around, get out on a walk, yell into a pillow if you've got a lot of tension or stress, dance around like no one's watching, whatever it is. Do one thing for your body, do one thing for your mind. Maybe sit down and write some affirmations or journal a bit for 5 minutes. Um, you know, there are so many practices that you can engage with for that, or just take 5 minutes to read something that you really enjoy or something like that, and 5 minutes for sort of more of your emotional self. So that can also be journaling or affirmations, um, or any myriad of things that just bring you general emotional joy and happiness. And really mindfully sort of carve out 5 minutes for each of those things. So that, I think, is a more practical thing that we can take from this lesson. It's a small little thing that we can all just start doing without a massive commitment. So that's something that I'm going to try to focus a bit on this week as well as we go forward. And so I think that really gives us sort of our guidance here as we go into the week. If you keep an eye out on my posts, and also if you join my newsletter, which you can find in the link, my link tree in my bio has links to my free newsletter and my online shop for paid tarot readings and all that good stuff. Um, that's really the theme from which the rest of sort of my musings and posts will come from. And that's kind of how this is going to what I'm going to try to do every week, is just keep building on our yearly reading into these readings for each month, and then having a little bit of guidance from each week from that monthly reading. And I think that's I really hope that that is really useful to everyone. It's certainly useful to me. It helps me in my individual readings, helps me to solidify my knowledge of tarot, but also just it is the guidance of the universe. So when we're in tune with that and we're really aligned with our higher selves, it just everything comes more easily. And so I hope that you all find benefit from that. And please don't hesitate to comment, especially as we go forward each week with these lives, and let me know if you've found these things helpful.